Welcome to Perfect Match
Question mark?
with Brian Keller,
And Michelle
the
Drohan.
podcast in which we discuss the culture through the lens of tennis. We are on video today.
It's quite disturbing to me.
It's a new frontier.
I'm
It's
like, what is happening? I don't know that I want to publish the video of this podcast.
we're going video, babe. We are
Just
going
putting that
video.
out there.
I'm looking at myself. I'm kind of I like my hair. I like the lighting. I got the ring light going. You do not you need a ring light.
Yes, I need a ring light. I'm not super pleased with my presentation today. I feel like I'm about to get COVID from
Right.
you,
I
by
have
the
so
way.
the reason that we are on video and in separate apartments is because I was supposed to be in Colombia today on vacation in South America, but I came down with COVID the night before my plane was supposed to take off, and so here I am.
And
And
we didn't know that you had COVID until Sunday, and we hung out on Saturday night.
correct, that is
And
right.
so now I'm just waiting for the COVID to come.
Yep, you're waiting for the hammer to fall.
Yeah. And I want to make sure that our listeners understand that despite this, the sickness that you have and the potential sickness that might be coming my way, we still have martinis
Fuck it,
because,
it's
we're just super dedicated to
to drinking.
um, to making sure that we do this while we podcast because it's the one consistent thing that's happened over the course of the many months that we've been podcasting.
Exactly.
Always a cocktail in hand.
Gotta have a cocktail. And my COVID is not particularly severe. I've been vaccinated 1,000 times and I've had COVID already. And it's,
Although you did complain of chest pains last night,
That's
which is kind of concerning.
yeah, that was last night. Today's a new
Okay.
day. I feel much better today.
Okay.
Dayquil is the shit. But anyway, so we're on video. We're doing the podcast, experimenting with Riverside, the app where you do video podcasts. And this week we are talking Carlos and Coco and what I'm calling magic people.
Magic people.
Yeah, I mean,
What does it mean to be a magic person?
okay, so I got this from Mark Maron on his WTF podcast. I've heard him refer to people as magic people before. And the first time I heard him say it was about the Beatles when he watched that documentary of the making of their last few albums. And he's like, they're like magic people. And then I heard him say it again when he was introducing his interview with Ariana Grande, which I like Ariana Grande. You have other feelings about her?
I mean, I'm indifferent about Ariana Grande. I don't necessarily connect with her music, but I acknowledge that she is, crazy talented and could be one of these magic people that Mark Maron speaks of.
I think that
And the concept makes sense to me. There are just people in this world. I mean, I would call, in some ways, Nathan Fielder,
yes.
who created, the rehearsal,
Yes,
kind
and
of a magic person because it's a level of genius that isn't very
it's
common.
kind of like people who move through the world in a different way than the rest of us.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think that Coco Gauff and particularly Carlos Alcaraz, his entire life has been just strange and celebrated and extraordinary, and he doesn't live in the same kind of world that we do. And his energy, uplifts crowds and us and people wherever he goes. And
I think the way that people react to both Carlos and Coco is special and unlike how people are reacting, honestly, to anybody else playing on tour right now.
absolutely. And so they both won the French Open. Congratulations, Carlos and Coco.
Yeah. And I just want to remind everybody that Carlos is 22 years old, Coco is 21 years old.
Right.
They've already accomplished so much, and you have to remind yourself how young they are because they are so poised at that age. And that contributes to this idea of them being magic people, that you could accomplish this and be who they are at this age is astounding to me.
It's amazing. And they both, in this French Open, had these come from behind, sort of hero journey stories in the final, the women's final, Coco on Saturday. she was down a set against Aryna Sabalenka, and somehow pulled it together and just sort of barely got past the finish line and won. And Carlos Alcaraz was down
Carlos completed, like, he performed a miracle on Sunday, hands down a miracle. I was chatting with people that I work with today who I would classify as casual fans, and they all said something very similar. Like, they could not believe what they were seeing.
Right.
And that's how I felt watching it. And as I am wont to do, I get so nervous watching these matches that I do all sorts of weird things, as we've discussed, in my apartment, where I'm like, I can't watch. I'm going to walk away. I'm going to watch the live scores on my phone. I'm not going to actually watch the match. And when it was all said and done, what I needed to do, and we would have done this together if you didn't have COVID, I rewatched from the third set on because I needed to actually see what happened. How did he pull this off? Because in the moment, I was just out of my mind and I just couldn't really concentrate or watch.
You said you were moving through different rooms and watching on different devices because they were at different delay points or something like that.
Well, so the stream is slightly behind the live score that you can follow on Google. So I could see the score and go, oh, Carlos won that point. Okay, now I'm going to watch. And then
you are an insane person.
I am an insane person, but it was too stressful for me. It reminded me of watching Federer back in the day. And it's so fun to go back and rewatch knowing what happened because you can fully engage.
You are 100% a Carlos Alcaraz fan now. Because you're going through this crazy mental shit, like, you are totally a convert.
Yeah, I think that was clear before.
Well, I think it's become solidified that you are in Carlos's.
Yes, but here's the difference. Obviously when we first met, I couldn't actually watch a Federer final with you.
No, you would not allow me in your apartment during the final if he was playing.
It was just too. I couldn't. I also was probably part of, like, not wanting to show you how absolutely crazy I was and weird I was about it, because I'm weird about it. I do weird things. Now I don't care. So if you had been well, we would have watched this together and we would have both acted like crazy people.
We definitely would have. But yeah, we'll talk a little bit more in detail about both the women's and the men's final. We don't usually do match recap type content, but
yeah, we'll talk about it.
These are pretty extraordinary matches.
Yeah, they're extraordinary, and we'll talk about why they were extraordinary, but in a very general way. But I also just want to point out how invested I was, and I think I'm going to say you were too, in the outcomes of these matches, and how happy it made me that they both won. It totally affected my mood and still is affecting my mood. If they had lost and I woke up this morning on Monday, the French Open's over, there's always a little bit of that Grand Slam, let down, it's over, and Wimbledon's a mere weeks away, but there is a kind of depressing thought when you wake up the Monday morning after a slam. But when the right people win and you feel really good about it, like, I feel good. I'm in a good mood. It really affects me. I think that's maybe normal, but I don't know.
No, and I mean, with all that's going on in the world, I mean, in this country and in Los Angeles, for example, it is so nice to just have magic out there happening, because it's getting harder and harder to find.
To just spend 5 hours yesterday engrossed in this was a nice escape.
Exactly. But first, tennis tidbits, and these are all basically about the French Open. So first off, we both, I think, agree that the French Open television coverage this year, supplied by Warner Brothers, was
Warner Brothers Discovery, WBD.
Warner Disco, whatever you call it. It was extraordinary for a couple of reasons. I'd say the first thing was the commentary. I mean, we talked about this last week, but they brought out everybody from Tennis Channel, ESPN. You had, the McEnroe brothers, and for better or for worse.
Didn't like them, but they brought out old school, new school.
And particularly, I was impressed with Sloane Stephens and Chris Eubanks. Chris Eubanks, sorry, is a player, an active player on tour who has a really big serve and sometimes makes a little bit of headway in certain tournaments. And he's a great commentator, though. And then Sloane Stephens, who's a one-time U.S. Open champion, we've always had mixed feelings about her, like, personality, kind of, but, like, she came off really good as a commentator.
Well, I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of her as a player for whatever reason. We don't need to get into that now. It doesn't matter. But as a commentator, I thought she really shined.
She was
And
fantastic, yeah.
she was great. There was a segment before the final where you had Coco Vandeweghe, who normally commentates on the Tennis Channel. You had Sloane Stephens, you had Chris Evert, you had Lindsay Davenport, and they were going around the table asking for their predictions. And the first person they asked was Coco Vandeweghe, who just said, "Oh, Sabalenka's going to win in straights." And Sloane Stephens, she was reluctant to predict, but she was so honest and it was so refreshing. She said, "I want Coco to win." And and I was so glad that she got to what she wanted. And I found it a little weird that Coco Vandeweghe didn't give Coco Gauff any chance whatsoever.
Well, and there's a dynamic here, too, where Sloane Stephens and Coco Gauff are both black women, and Coco Vandeweghe is a very white woman, and there's a kind of dismissiveness around Coco Vandeweghe as well. Sabalenka's going to win the straights, and who cares kind of thing. But, without going too deep into that.
Right. But I think overall, I was thinking the other day, since they brought in pretty much everybody who's ever commentated on tennis to cover this tournament, but a few people did not show up and weren't there.
Who are?
Well, Martina Navratilova.
Yeah, she wasn't involved, right?
Notably missing. Paul Annacone, notably missing.
Oh, good. The judgy Uncle Paul.
Judgy Uncle Paul. So it's interesting to me that they spared no expense and they brought in all these people, but I don't know if it was intentional or.
You needed somebody to do that lonely recap thing the Tennis Channel did every night at 8:00. So there's your Paul Annacone, there's your Tracy Austin.
Yeah, I mean, you can't include everybody, but they certainly did, and they brought in Andre Agassi for certain segments, and I thought that
the Agassi thing was kind of weird. I think he is very weird.
I know. Everybody loves Agassi,
okay.
and
I was never part of that Agassi era. I have no affinity for him as a player. I mean, I get it with the pleated jean shorts and the crazy heavy metal hair, but I just think he's a very weird person, and his story is very weird to me. And I thought he came off as extremely weird as a commentator, but that's just me. I don't know.
So the theme is he's weird. I get it, but he is. I think he brought a lot of interesting insight when they asked him about why Sinner stands a certain way on the return. Andre Agassi brought a really good perspective to that conversation. Yeah. My problem with Andre is the same problem I have with Jim Courier, and people love Jim Courier. The people who hate the McEnroe brothers love Jim Courier.
I don't get that.
And I think my problem with both of those men is not what they say, but how they say it. They sound super condescending to me and smug. And it just rubs me the wrong way.
You think Agassi sounds this way too?
Yeah, I think they both sound kind of smug.
My problem with Agassi is he always kind of smiles like this as he talks, and he's just kind of always smiling, and then the smile gets bigger, and then he's I think it's a very unusual delivery.
Yeah, you know what Sonny would say?
What?
Hopped up on goofballs.
Your mother would probably think he's high on drugs, which he was for a lot of his tennis career, by the way.
No, not a lot of his tennis career.
For some of his crystal meth, right?
Yeah, for a short period.
I mean, this is in his autobiography.
Yes, of course.
Okay, so commentating was great. The coverage was amazing. This is the first time I believe we've ever had a really well integrated combination of streaming app-based coverage within the HBO Max app in this case, and linear cable TV, basic cable coverage on the TNT and True TV channels, which pretty much every bar and restaurant and person with cable has. So no matter what kind of viewer you are or where you are, it was possible to tune in these matches in some variety at any time that they were playing. And I thought it was incredible.
Yeah, it was really nice because HBO Max has already such a mass penetration of subscribership throughout the United States. So it was like a built-in audience if you marketed properly. It wasn't like, oh, go have to get this thing to
Oh my
watch
God,
this
like
thing.
last year with NBC and Peacock. I mean, NBC last year, like in the middle of a like important match, would say, okay, everybody, now go over to Peacock and watch the rest of this match. And if you don't have it, like you can sign up and subscribe and, you fucking use the QR code. It's like, come on.
I mean, and it pissed people off, right? Oh,
It was
now I have to go over
outrageous. It was
here.
terrible.
It went from Tennis Channel to NBC and back to Tennis Channel and over to Peacock. You could never follow when and where.
It
And
was
here it was
awful.
like, open up your HBO Max app. You can watch whatever court you want. You can watch replays. Or if you just have a basic cable or you have a OTT, live TV
Or
service.
you walk into a bar and you say, hey, do you have like TNT? And they're like, sure.
Yeah.
And then they turn it on.
So I think that gave the tournament this massive exposure. I read also, and I didn't know this before, that Warner Brothers Discovery paid a whopping $65 million per year for the rights.
Wow. And they have it for 10 years.
10 years. And Tennis Channel and NBC had historically paid $12 million per year. So there's a huge difference in what they invested. And I think that was reflected in what they brought to the coverage. They actually believe in this tournament. They respect the tournament. I don't think that Peacock and NBC ever really respected it. And I think it was great for tennis. And now we don't know what the viewership numbers yet are for the finals, but I read in the first 8 days of the coverage, WBD saw a 23% increase in viewership from the previous
WBD meaning
year.
Warner Brothers Discovery.
Yeah, Warner Brothers Discovery saw a 23% increase in what the numbers were last year when Tennis Channel and NBC had it. When you add True TV and Max, they announced it saw a 53% increase in total viewers watched.
Yeah, a lot of people watch this.
That is massive to me.
It's
and
incredible.
I think that's so important for tennis that we are increasing the viewership. That to me is the most important thing. Access, viewership. And I don't know, again, what the finals brought in terms of numbers, but I did also read that in France, 5.5 million people watched the men's final and 3.15 million people watched the women's final.
Right, but they had a different, they weren't watching it on like HBO Max and True TV and stuff. They have their own way of watching.
Yeah, no, but I'm just saying, like, this is the kind of viewership that happened in France. The women's final had the highest viewership in 20 years, which I credit Coco with. So I'm very curious. I mean, we're never going to hit those types of numbers here in the US yet, but I think we're going to see really good viewership from the finals because they provided so much drama and excitement.
Yeah.
And I think it opened the door for new fans to come in a significant way. And that really makes me excited.
No, it's awesome. And then as if on cue, Warner Brothers Discovery and David Zaslav, the controversial president, announced that they're now going to split the company with HBO Max being one company and the cable, sort of linear stuff being a different company. And the thing is, the thing that made this coverage so great was that you had both going on together.
Yeah, I know, but this will not affect.
They're going to be two publicly held companies, right?
Babe, this is my industry,
All
no
right.
offense, but they're splitting the businesses so that they can manage them in different ways. It's not going to affect the way that the French Open.
Well, we'll see.
No, trust me. No.
I know that you're an expert and you're in the industry, and I'm not. However, I have a feeling.
No, your feeling is wrong, and this won't matter. It'll actually probably be good because if you split these lines of businesses, they can focus on streaming versus cable, and it'll just result in more revenue for each individually, which will then benefit.
Blah, 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 something. Yeah, no, okay. You know what?
Fine,
as someone,
whatever.
as an uninformed person, I have a right to my own cynicism. My cynicism trumps your expertise.
Knowledge? Okay,
Yes.
whatever. So
So
irritating.
anyway, coverage was great. Now on to the matches. Oh, sorry.
We're not done with tennis
Yeah,
tidbits.
tennis tidbits. So this is really kind of tacky. Sabalenka, after she lost to Coco Gauff, and Coco Gauff played an unbelievable match, she was quoted in her press conference afterwards. She said, "It was really honestly the worst tennis I've played in the last, I don't know how many months." She won the match, not because she played incredible, just because I made all those mistakes. I don't know, if Iga would have beat me another day, I think she would go out today and get the win over Coco. So she's saying, like, if I hadn't beat Iga, Iga would have beat Coco. I mean, this is the most unsportsmanlike, terrible. She gives Coco Gauff no credit for playing well, and she's all about herself, and she played bad, and blah blah blah. And then after all this, like everyone like was like, "What the fuck, Sabalenka? Like that's so tacky. Screw you." And Coco Gauff, by the way, pointed out after Sabalenka said that, Coco Gauff said, "Well, I beat Iga recently a couple times. So last time I beat her was in straight sets. So I don't know what the fuck you're talking about." She didn't say it that way, but that was
No,
her.
I think, yeah. I mean, Sabalenka was completely ungracious, sour grapes. She's in the press
It was
conference.
just terrible.
She took the loss hard. I get it, but I don't think those statements were. I don't know.
I don't like when players. I mean, Naomi Osaka has a habit of doing this too, where she
I
loses. She goes,
know.
I played the worst tennis I've ever played. It's like, no, like you had a bad day, but the other person also played well, and it's really tacky and unsportsmanlike to do that. To be like,
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
so sorry, I just played terrible.
Yeah, yeah. Sabalenka did a lot of things wrong, and Coco did a lot of things right. You cannot predict her saying like, "Oh, if Iga had beat me and then played Coco, everything would have been
Yeah,
different." The thing about tennis and most sports, it's like, on any given day, anything can happen.
yeah,
Anyone can beat anybody else, and you just have to show up, deal with the conditions. It was very windy, and play the person, play the opponent you're playing, and see what happens.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
I think Sabalenka was just, she's very emotional. I mean, I think I don't want to criticize it because in a way it really brought some great drama to the match. I
Yes,
mean, when she was screaming at her box and all sorts of other things, I was like, yeah, like let's bring it again to the casual fan. That kind of drama, people want to see that.
yeah, yeah. That's true.
So I don't mind that this is happening. Um, and
She did
she did
she
apologize
did walk it
for it.
back on Instagram later when everybody was like, "What the fuck?" She said, "You know me, I'm always going to be honest and human in how I process these moments." Sabalenka continued, "I made over 70 unforced errors, so I can't pretend it was a great day for me. But both things can be true. I didn't play my best, and Coco stepped up and played with poise and purpose. She earned the title. Respect."
Yeah.
Okay, okay, fine, all right, but like
I
people,
mean, she had a day to calm down and and say the right thing, but I think it's really hard. Not only do you have to get up on the podium right after your loss,
yeah,
this devastating loss for both losers. Yannick Sinner had to do the same thing and answer questions and speak to the crowd. Then you have to go and speak to the press.
yeah.
It's brutal. It's
Yeah, the
brutal.
the post loss press match, we've talked about this before, is like a weird, like kind of abusive ritual that should probably stop. But the match, let's talk about Coco Gauff now. Coco Gauff
Yes,
beat
yes.
Sabalenka in 3 sets. She was down a set and she came back. You are the person who remembers details of matches. I do not. It's as if it never happened in my brain. So you tell us what happened.
Right. Well, first of all, you had just taken a red eye, so you were, I think, asleep for a lot of this
I
match,
slept through most
or
of it. Yeah,
coming in and out of, what turned out to be like a COVID dream.
correct.
So
By the way, apologies to everyone on that red eye flight who I now have COVID, presumably. Anyway,
yeah, I mean, it's still out there,
yeah.
and people have to be
Wear a
careful.
mask,
But
people. Wear a fucking mask.
or yeah, I don't know. Make sure you're vaccinated as well.
Definitely.
Um, so the match didn't start off great. I was really concerned initially because Sabalenka came out like completely focused and firing, and she can overpower anybody in the moment. And Coco, I think, had to find her way into the match. But at one point in the first set, Sabs, as I like to call her, was up 4-1, 40 love, about to go up 5-1, and somehow Coco crawled her way back to 4-all, then 5-all, then 6-all, and then they played a tiebreak. Coco lost that tiebreak, but the fact that she came back from being so far down, I was like, oh, this is interesting. Sabalenka starts to get frustrated, starts to lose it a little bit. I was very impressed with Coco. I mean, the poise and purpose, you could see it on Coco's face.
Yeah.
The look on her face the entire match,
The
she
grit.
was just not letting anything bother her. And she just was like looking over at Sabalenka, you know, talking to her.
Melting down, screaming at her box.
Yeah. And if you are Coco Gauff and you see that, you've got to be thinking, I just have to play my game. I just have to stay focused and calm. And this person is just going to fall apart. And that's exactly what happened. Coco came back, won the second set definitively. And the third set was close, but not close enough. And she won in 6-4 in the third.
Yeah.
And it was just an amazing moment. Both finals, the celebration in the box with the parents.
Yeah.
It was just a beautiful moment.
Yeah, it was wonderful. I mean, this is when you feel, Coco Gauff just sort of buckles down and is so determined and so focused. And she doesn't really get emotional the way some other players do. If she's like, she lost that first set and she's like, fine, let's do the second set. There wasn't a big freak out.
No, you see her get frustrated, but she's relatively controls her emotions pretty well.
And this matters, right? Because, what I hear sometimes is with Sabalenka, they're like, well, she played well, but, her mind, it's as if it's like, if you freak out and start yelling at your box and then you're missing points and you're making 70 unforced errors, oh, well, that's just because her mind got to her. That's fucking tennis, right? Like, there is no distinction between your mind and your body in tennis. In fact, the mind might be more important.
Did you personally take any lessons?
I see what you're doing here because
I'm just asking questions. Just curious to know if you took anything from watching this match about maybe how you might react when you're not playing.
Have you
your best.
taken any lessons about how to be empathetic with someone who's not as good as you on the court and then goes out and can't actually serve one day? And the mind. I have a lot of experience with mental breakdowns on the tennis court. I have walked off the tennis court and left my opponent standing there before.
Yes.
I have.
You're the amateur Sabalenka.
I'm not good enough to be that angry, but sometimes it's very frustrating. It's the game. It's like, it doesn't matter if you physically somehow were better if you melt down and have a freak out, because that's the game. That's it. And Sabalenka, I think her biggest problem is that she cannot really win unless she's completely dominating. She sometimes comes from behind. She sometimes is able to kind of, come back a little bit, but she's so used to just dominating from point one to the end that when she's down, it's over. And that's a real problem for her.
Yeah, I think she has one gear. She knows how to play this specific way, and she doesn't necessarily adjust. She's just like, I have to play the only way I know how to play, and if it's not working out, she just melts down.
Yeah, and that's not gonna put her in the conversation about the greatest of all time, as Sloane Stephens pointed out.
Well, I mean, listen, she's still the most dominating woman on the tennis tour right now.
She is still number one.
Yeah, so she's going to be the pick to win most Grand Slams. She is.
Yeah, that's true.
She is that good. But she's lost too many matches because of this.
Yeah.
That she hopefully will be able to, figure that out.
She quit her therapist because she was like, oh, I had to figure it out myself. Well, apparently that hasn't happened.
Yeah, she doesn't probably believe in any of that stuff, and that's fine, but maybe she'll reconsider.
Up to her. And then Carlos Alcaraz. That match on Sunday, it was something, I feel like it was like a movie I watched. It wasn't even a tennis match. It was like some sort of epic, Netflix special or something. It was just incredible, right?
Yeah, if you were to sit down and script a narrative of a comeback journey, a hero's journey,
Yep.
and you were writing it out, I feel like you would have scripted this particular match
It wouldn't have been
because,
believable, if it were done in a
right,
narrative form.
yeah, I'd be like, oh no, there's no way. But the way that it played out, the way that it unraveled, yes, it felt like an epic movie. And what he did, let's just a little bit of detail for our viewers. He lost the first two sets to Jannik Sinner, the number one player in the world. Jannik Sinner had not dropped a single set the entire tournament. A lot of people were like, Sinner in straights. And I was like, no, 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 don't say that. I want Alcaraz to win so badly. And it started to look that way. It started to look like he was going to win in straights. And Alcaraz looked a little flat when he first came out. He didn't have that kind of magic joy. There was no smile. I think he was just like
Yeah, it was
trying
weird.
to
It was
figure
really
it out. It
weird.
was weird. Yeah. It was
And this is his
concerning.
surface. This is clay, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, he's better on clay than Yannick, but man, it could have been over in three sets. Carlos Alcaraz won the third set, and you go, okay, maybe he has some life. And then we're into the fourth set, and then the worst thing happens. Carlos Alcaraz serving at 3-5, 3 match points. He has Jannik Sinner just needs to break and win 1 point on Alcaraz's serve to win the whole thing. And I'm like, oh, it's over. This is one of the moments where I was like, I can't watch. I'm in the kitchen. I'm cleaning and watching a live
Ye
sport.
of little faith.
I know.
But
I,
it
I'm
was an impossible task. Any other player loses at that point. Anyone.
absolutely. And he manages to save those 3 match points, hold his serve, but then Jannik Sinner is still up 5-4 and can serve for the match. And he hadn't been broken barely the whole tournament and in this match. And Carlos breaks him. And you're like, oh my God, the whole place was going crazy. And then it goes to a tiebreak. Alcaraz manages to win that. And then we're in a fifth set. At that point, I thought, okay, I think Alcaraz can do it because he's fitter. And the longer the match goes, the better chance he has to
Well,
win.
and Sinner had not played a fourth set since Wimbledon of 2024. I mean,
Right.
in a way that there was only one slam. No, there was the U.S. Open and the Australian Open, which in all of those, no one took a set off him, right?
Right. That's how dominant he
That's how
was.
dominant he was, right?
He is, yeah.
And so I
But
thought like this is new territory. He hasn't played a fourth set in over a year, right?
yeah, I mean he's going to be taken to the nth degree, and that was very much and Carlos probably knew that. There was a moment in the match where his coach Juan Carlos Ferrero with Mary Jo Fernandez is one of the commentators, and she speaks Spanish, and she was on doing courtside commentary, and
In
she could
translation.
translate what Juan Carlos Ferrero was saying to Carlos. And at one point, he kept saying, like, look at him, almost like intimidate him. I remember I think it was when Carlos was playing Djokovic in some tournament, and Djokovic was kind of injured, and I feel like Carlos took his foot off the
Yeah,
gas.
he was like, oh, he's such a nice guy. He was like, oh, I don't want to be.
Yeah.
You know.
And I think in this match, Juan Carlos Ferrero wanted to be like, no, 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 boot on the neck, sweep the leg. Sinner started to struggle a little bit, and it was like, you have to go at him, look at him, and make sure he knows you're going to take him down. It was almost like an intimidation tactic, and it was extraordinary.
It was.
At but I just want to talk about the fifth set. At first, everyone was like, "Oh, he's going to run away with it. It's going to be like 6-2." Jannik Sinner somehow finds the stamina, whatever it was in his body. He was struggling, but then they go to a tiebreak, which is in the fifth set. You have to play 10-point tiebreak. And I was like, oh my God. But Carlos Alcaraz just dominated it. Just dominated it.
Oh,
He won the first, like, I think 6 or 7 points. And at
yeah.
that point, I was like, okay, I'm pretty sure he's going to win.
Yes, we can all relax after 5.5 hours of torture.
Yeah, it was a beautiful
And it brings you, like, that's part of the magic, is that he takes you on this epic hero's journey, like a Joseph Campbell hero journey, you know, through the valley, and like, and then you come back, but then there's another smaller valley, and then you're in a tiebreak, and like, it was unbelievable. It was one of the best tennis matches I've ever watched, I think, in my entire life, and one of the most astonishing tennis matches I've ever seen.
Yeah, I think it will go down as one of the greatest evers.
It's definitely one of the longest. I think it's the second longest in the Open era.
Yeah, second only to the 2012 Australian Open final between Djokovic and Nadal that Djokovic ended up winning. And those two were so tired that during the trophy ceremony, like, it went on too long. They had to bring chairs out so that they could sit down because they were so exhausted, and they were standing around, and like, whoever, you know, the president of Kia, the sponsor, was just going on and on and on and on. And everyone's like, these guys look like they're going to fall over.
Well, this was almost as long as that, and you didn't need any fucking chairs in this trophy ceremony.
You really didn't.
I mean, these guys are like...
Are they the fittest people on earth?
I mean, I think so.
Yeah. I was just going to say, too, Yannick Sinner, who I, you know, he's fine. I don't dislike him. I do find him kind of boring.
He's a bit robotic. There
was at least one point in the match where he was angry at a line call, and watching him get quote unquote angry compared to what we saw from Sabalenka, and I'm like, this is how Yannick Sinner gets angry. He's like the most polite, angry person I've ever seen.
Yes.
And then when he gave his runners-up speech, I mean, obviously he was upset, but I was, you know, there's no tears, there's no nothing. He's just like, I'll find it hard to sleep tonight, but it's okay.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand this guy.
Bless him.
I just don't understand this guy. I mean, he seems like a very nice guy, but there's something about him. I don't know. I feel like he's like not going to connect so much.
Not like Alcaraz.
Yeah, not like Alcaraz. How could I don't know, but
well, anyway. So this has been a fun experiment. This has been nothing major. No, sorry. This has been Perfect Match.
Wait, what?
This has been Perfect Match, and I don't know, video.
I feel like I did all the talking, and I also feel like I've been on a work call this entire time.
Yeah, probably not that fun for you. I enjoyed it because I got to react and like kind of look at my mirror and on video, and kind of like. I like it. So follow us on YouTube. We do actually have a YouTube channel. There's almost no content, but we'll throw this up here.
Are you going to put this on YouTube?
I'm going to put this on YouTube. I'm going to put those words that go like bloop, 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 you know, like, and all that stuff. I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to do like influencer, fucking whatever.
Okay.
And we're just going to go for it, babe. We're just going to become like tennis influencers.
Oh, I don't think I have it. I don't think I have it.
You don't have it in you?
I don't think I have it in me. So much work.
All right, I'll do it. I don't have anything else to do.
Okay.
See you later.
Bye.